Good afternoon. Good afternoon again. We are back again with another edition of Teacher Talk. Welcome. We're here. We're real teachers discussing real issues that are happening within our schools and within our school districts. I'm Dedrick Messenger. This is my trusted colleague,
Jackie Collins.
Amen. Sister Jackie, what you got for us today?
All right, so we've talked about why teachers are so stressed, and kind of gave some background on why we think teachers are stressed. So today, after looking at a Dr. Phil episode yesterday, I wanted to ask you, Pastor, do you think the education system is failing us? Is it failing? Before you answer, let me go through some things. So yesterday, Dr. Phil's topic was, do you think children in America are getting smarter, dumber, or staying the same?
Yeah.
And I thought, wow, that's very interesting. So he gave some stats. So he said in 2015, based off some 2015 stats, 32 million Americans can only read on a fifth grade level. 32 million.
32 million.
Then the stats said 19% of high school graduates can't even read.
Wow.
That's almost 20% of our population that graduate from high school and cannot read. Then he went on to say the average ACT score in the class of 2020 dropped to the lowest in 30 years. And I know a lot of people are thinking, well, we had the pandemic, so we're going to contribute a lot of that to the pandemic. But I thought this was just an interesting topic that he had yesterday. So I wanted to ask you, first of all, I wanted you to give some background. What is the expectation of a kindergarten? Because without that background, I don't think that we can kind of clearly see whether or not the education system are failing us, or are we failing the education system? Meaning, are we expecting too much from these kids when they come in kindergarten? Are they expected to know what? What are they expected to know?
Good question, so Jackie. Because I'm a K4 K5 teacher now.
Mm-hmm.
Was K4, and then I taught primary K1 and 2 for the longest, about 13, 14 years in that. But there is an expectation I think this expectation for kindergartens are being watered down every year. When I first started teaching 26 years ago, the kindergartner needed to know how to write his name.
Mm-hmm.
The kindergartner needed to know how to know his address, his telephone number, his mom.
When they start school, they need to know their address.
They need to know their address.
At 5 years old, they need to know their address.
They need to know I live at 1, 2, 3, 4 Alphabet Lane. They need to know that.
Wow.
They needed to know that. They need to know a telephone number.
And this was when you were teaching, when you were in primary?
When I first started teaching.
So that's been about 20-something years ago?
Almost 27 years ago.
Okay. All right. So, they need to know name, address.
They need to know name. They need to know their address. They need to know their telephone number. And they need to know their name, how to spell their name and write their name. So just I'm gonna leave it right there.
What about colors and did they need to know all the numbers and all of that?
That was not so much a big thing because we taught that, but we encouraged it because there was tests that we gave them at the beginning to qualify. Like a qualifying test. I forget which test it was that we used at that time, but it dealt with just basic colors: red, yellow, blue, green. You need to know those colors. You need to know how to count to 10. That was one of the things. You needed to be able to recognize basic shapes: square, triangle, rectangle, square.
So compare it to
now. Compare it to now.
Okay.
Compare it to now. As a kindergarten teacher now, I would say 85% of students can't draw a basic shape or a circle, or you tell them to draw a circle, triangle, square. They can't do it.
Can they recognize it, John? Because they needed
some of them. About 65% of them know what it is. I would say about less than 50% can write their name proficient that you can understand it.
Less than 50%.
Yeah, less than 50%.
But years ago, they wanted you to come into
Yeah.
kindergarten knowing
Right.
how to write your name.
Right. And the thing about it now is that we don't see a lot of writing in the
Mhm.
school system where we say, because I question all the time, why can't these kids write their name? Because you got to put your name on your paper.
Right.
So we're finding ourselves having to write out their names on their paper
Mm,
so that we'll know how to give it back to them if we didn't finish that project.
right.
What did I say?
Do they know
Accounting.
the address?
No.
When they come?
Oh, now let's go this far.
Okay.
Now the address, about 95% of them don't know their address.
Wow.
And this is something alarming.
That's a high number.
We got about 40% that don't know their mama's whole name or their daddy's whole name. They can't put it together.
Mm.
They can't say my daddy's name is Red Apple. They just know his name is Red.
But is that unusual, though, for a 5-year-old?
No, it's not, because these are the things that we taught. You know, when there was an expectation. I remember when I first started school, and they said that it was being dumbed down a little bit, even when I came, because even when I came home, my mom and daddy were those that came home for lunch. When they worked, in the industry. So they came home for lunch. I had to have a tablet rolled out every day.
Mm.
One thing that we have stopped doing. Watch this. This is interesting to me because I do these things in my classroom just to see.
Mm-hmm.
About 95% of the kids in my classroom have never seen an episode of Sesame Street.
Mm.
Or Electric Company or any kind of show that promotes education.
It's interesting that you say that, because in some articles that I was reading, it talks about the impact of technology and how they're in front of these screens all the time. So if that is an impact, then maybe we just have them in front of the wrong screens at that age. You know what I mean?
It is, because watch this. How did I learn my timetables and what a conjunction was or adverb or you remember Schoolhouse Rock. You remember the countings or even the kids would get with that's why Sesame Street was created, the puppets. So kids would like the puppets, but they were teaching them the count. He always counted the colors or whatever it was, the Cookie Monster. I'm gonna eat 3 cookies. What if I take 2 away? Everything was about how to rationalize something. And our kids, they have no rationalization skills at all.
Do we call it rationalization skills these days, or we call it coping?
It may be, they call it coping now, but let's rationalize a little bit.
Yeah,
if I eat 3 cookies and then you got 5, how many are you gonna have left? They can't they can't do that. They can't do that. And everything, we have to write an IEP for everything now.
Or 504.
Or 504. We're finding things that we say, back then, we're going to teach you how to work through this as opposed to give you an easy way to get through it. So now we're finding that in kindergarten, our kindergartners are very, very, I'm telling you, trying to teach them how to color inside of a line. There is no such thing now. Watch this. This is interesting. You asked this question because I asked them, how many of you guys have ever had a coloring book? About 90% per time again. What's a coloring book, Dr. Messenger? What is that? I said, coloring book, man. When you got pages, you can get this kind. They never had a coloring book.
Wow.
They don't have a coloring book. So these are things we colored, just to learn how to stay inside the line. We could color before we got to kindergarten.
It helped you with those fine motor skills as well before you went to school.
Watch this. And another thing that kids have a hard time with is just tracing. I want you to draw a square. Now I want you to trace that line. And they don't know what tracing is. You have to explain to them what tracing is. What is tracing? All we did was trace. We put a piece of paper on top of something and trace it all the time. Just say we drew it.
I think that we have advanced so much. Our education system has advanced so much that we are leaving so much of the basic stuff out, which is critical. When you have middle schoolers that do not know how to address an envelope, we're leaving so much of it. Like
not middle schoolers, we're talking about high schoolers.
Yeah. Yeah.
I had a young lady that graduated
But
high
we
school.
learned that in middle school.
That's right. That
Yeah.
did not even know how to send a letter off and graduated college. No, seriously. Well, what do I do with this?
I don't know if that's true.
That's true. What does this, you got to put a stamp on that.
Right.
I didn't know that. Where does the stamp go? I mean,
Right.
Sister Jackie, I asked a question for high schoolers. Let's go a little bit out of elementary. I went to high school and I said, do you guys have a consumer education?
Mm-hmm.
No, we don't have that anymore. They're just talking about basic things in life. How to write a check. The average high schooler don't know how to write a check.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
They don't know how to, they swipe a card. They don't know how to write a check. So what makes you think they would know where a stamp goes? They don't even know what stamps are.
Right.
You know, we're the one. Everything is paid online. Everything is automatically deducted. I mean, they don't need a stamp now. These are basic things that we're getting away from, that we need to be taught about. And every time we come up with something, I think we need to go back to as they say, the 3 R's: reading, writing, arithmetic.
Mm-hmm.
I think we need to just go back to that.
Mm-hmm.
Because think about this: who's running our country now? Reading, writing, arithmetic, right?
Mm-hmm.
And who in the back wing waiting for our country? Those that can't even do reading, writing, and arithmetic.
Mm-hmm.
Am I right? They're waiting for us to pass on, and they're going to take over. And you're asking the question, man, are we losing our kids? We done lost our kids based on what the system tells us to do every time we come in. You can't do this anymore. You can't do this. It's interesting that your kid doesn't even have. We don't even have conduct, basic things. We don't even have a conduct grade on a report card anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Take it off.
Mm-hmm.
Why don't we want parents to know how their kids are behaving?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then the parent come and ask us, well, why did he get this grade?
Mm-hmm.
Well, if you had looked at his conduct grade, you would learn why his grade was right here.
Mm-hmm.
It's just simple things like that.
Well, in that segment yesterday, let me just point out that there was a lady on there, and she used to be a 6th grade teacher, and she quit. And the reason why she quit is because they was asking her to teach the 6th graders 3rd grade reading material, and she felt like she needed to try to get them at least to 6th grade reading material because they were in 6th grade. Mm-hmm. And so she decided, hey, this is not working, Along with working, I think she quoted anywhere from 105 hours a week. She said it was just so overwhelming. And there was a college professor on there. I think he was at a community college, but he was like a government teacher, maybe mm-hmm. politics or something along those lines. So he asked all his students when they first started, to take this basic test, and like who is a Secretary of State, and the kids going to college did not know it, which is not. It's not uncommon if you don't watch that. But I would think that if you're taking a government class in college, you're going into politics. And I would think if you're going into politics, you are kind of watching that. And that's kind of, you're embedding that in your brain a lot. But it was just so many basic things that they talked about that our kids do not know. And
you know, Sister Jackie, and you're there. And one of the things I tell we got a scope and a sequence, and we got a state standard and all that.
Yeah.
And I look at the state standard, but I try to take my kids above the state standard mm-hmm. because mm-hmm. the state just wants kids to be 50% proficient per se, somewhere in that area. Mm-hmm. Am I right? Somewhere I may be wrong, but mm-hmm. but the key is that I want my kids to be off the scale. Mm-hmm. My son he was in high school and he took an art class mm-hmm. and they actually asked in the art class 12th grader, what are the primary colors? And he told them what the primary colors. Nobody knew. He didn't teach. So where did you learn that from? So I learned in kindergarten. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Things that we're not even thinking. Kids will retain things if we give it to them. They're sponges.
Right.
I'm just being honest. They are sponges. They know exactly what we say. Mm-hmm. But you know what? We're the one, the state, again, even when you want to come in and be that teacher that teaches above the standard, somebody has something to bring you down. Think about this. Aspect, like what you just said. I want to teach 6th grade standards. Look mm-hmm. here. You're going to teach 3rd grade standard.
Mm-hmm. To 6th graders.
Yeah, that's right. You see what I'm saying? To 6th graders. Sense, right? Why don't you let this teacher, mm-hmm. Teach to her strengths mm-hmm. and have these kids, go out here and when they perform and let the test results show what they have known. Mm-hmm. And then all of a sudden you've taught a 3rd grade standard. Then you want to give them a test when they get to the ninth grade that they didn't even cover for the sixth grade.
Mm.
Now you're saying our kids are performing below grade level, but we have never taught them at grade level
or above.
or above. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
So it is my duty to say, I would prefer my kids to say this is too hard than for okay, you got your child there. You done taught him all these things I've told you to teach him in kindergarten. This is why he's cutting up. He ain't got nothing to do. He's bored out of his wits because I got 20 out of 25 over here that needs the basics that you should have taught them at school, parents. Amen.
At school, at home.
At home. See, we got to understand this. Education starts at home too. But when you got an adult that falls in line with what you have right here to say they couldn't read when they were in high school, so you know what, they're gonna have children and the reading is not going to be a priority to them.
Right. Which is sad. But
Well,
yes.
yeah.
So after I was doing some research about the education system failing, there were some reasons why, and you just kind of touched on one of them, but I wanted to elaborate on that one because one of the number one reasons they said that parents are not involved enough. And so when I first read that, I thought, sometimes they're overly involved, which I don't know if there's a such thing as being overly. I guess it's overly involvement when they are asking for things that are unreasonable, like, can you help me get additional time on the ACT when my kid has over a 4.0 and taking AP classes?
Yeah.
They just not a good test taker. And, that's not how the system
Right.
works. And that gives you an unfair advantage.
Right.
So I was thinking about, that could be a little bit overly involved, in my opinion. But this was interesting. It says, just as what you said, it says, of all the things out of the control of teachers, this one is perhaps the most frustrating. Time spent in the classroom is simply not enough for teachers to instruct every student, to teach them what they need to know. There must inevitably be some interaction outside of school hours, meaning, of course, parents have got to be involved. So when we send that homework home, you got to help your kid get it done or make sure the kid get it done. Sometimes the kid has the ability to do it that parents is like, oh, well, he didn't do his homework. Why not?
And you get enough parents together, Sister Jackie, and what happens is you get enough parents together and they'll go up there and say, it's too much homework. So that's not, then the system changed it.
Right.
Because you got people complaining about too much homework.
So that's over it. That's over involvement from parents.
There you
right?
go.
Okay.
That's that over involvement again, where you don't understand that. Man, I'm trying to get him to learn his timetables because this is just basic math. This is basic math, and he'll go out, and I hate to say it like this, he'll go out and he'll get caught up in the streets, and the street will teach him math because he'll learn how to convert pounds to grams.
Okay.
I'm just being honest with you.
No.
And the reason I say this, I was mentoring a young man that said I can't do math, but he was a dope dealer. So man, you can do math better than I can. I can convert pounds to ounces and grams and all that stuff. And all that. I said, use that right there, man, and think you're getting money for it.
Right.
And he passed math. He tore it up. I started looking at it like this, but what he seen on the paper. In the way they was teaching it, in the street taught them in a total different way.
Right.
And I say that with all due respect to teachers. Sometimes we have to bring an unorthodox approach to our classroom. If you got a lot of kids here and all they do is listen to rap music, maybe you need to figure out how to find a rap song online about timetables or numbers, or you know what I'm saying?
Right.
And how to get it in there. Because that's how what did we do with Schoolhouse Rock?
Right.
We knew it 5, 10, 15, 20. They kept going. We sang it all day. Because every Saturday, it was pumped into us. And it was effective. But you know what? We don't need that no more, Sister Jackie. We don't need that no more. We don't need Sesame Street no more. PBS, let's get that off TV. Let's exchange that with something else.
But I think part of that problem is that they're saying we don't need that no more because they want this advanced learning to me. Like, I want my kid in 6th grade to take algebra For what reason?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I mean, I'm like, why do your kid when remember years ago you took pre-algebra in ninth grade,
Yeah.
algebra in 10th grade,
Yeah.
geometry,
Yeah. They
you
stair
did not
stepped you into it.
now it's in middle school. These kids are coming to high school with all these credits. And I mean, it's like, and the parents are like, put my kids in advanced class. They're smart. Put my kids in there. But there's no reason for that. Let the kids learn at the pace of really where they are.
Where they are.
Don't try
It's like sending, these people say they send these kids, he's in college and he's 14 years old.
Yeah.
But they never tell you that this 14-year-old in college is not a 4.0 student.
Mm.
I had a friend, one of my friends had one of the kids over at MTSU. He was 12 years old, 13, whatever it was. And he was a C student.
Mm.
Very smart in high school.
But
in
isn't
elementary
part of
school.
that is maturation?
It is. And he said that was one of the problems. He was not with age appropriateness and he could not grow based on the kids around him.
Right.
You get, and plus it doesn't do us any good to have the smartest kid. What if he could operate and open up somebody's heart and make it do this when he's 12? Nobody's going to allow that 12-year-old to operate on him.
Right.
It's a doctor, he's 12. Oh, no, man, you need to get that kid out here and get me somebody else. That's what they would say anyway, am I right? So he's going to have to grow into it regardless of what parents think.
Exactly.
So we find ourselves a lot of times just going in, just thinking that we know it. And I think what the school system needs to do is just like, I can come in, I can't tell a mechanic I can tell what my car's doing, but I can't tell him how to fix it.
Exactly. Yeah.
I can tell the doctor how I'm feeling, but I can't tell him how to cure me.
Right.
But in school, we got parents telling us how we're going to teach their child.
Right.
That's not right. And everybody is voting on some for teachers, and they find that they think they know more than us, but in retrospect, they don't. And then when they say, you gave my child this, every time it's always someone the child makes a D or a C or whatever.
Yeah.
You gave my child, say, no, ma'am. Your child earned this.
Let's talk about another reason why we have a failing education system. One of them was our schools are overcrowded. And I was like, wow, that is a very good point. Because remember, and I'm going to always go back and compare it to when we were younger, when there was only so many in a class. It was a very small class, so the teacher could work with every kid. And you didn't have to worry about differentiating your instruction, is because you knew that Pastor, he doesn't know his numbers quite well. So when I go over there, I know I can work with him. Right. And then I can work with Jackie, and I can work with this one and that one. But now, if you have 25 kindergartners in a class to one teacher, how can they be successful in that situation? I mean, that is too many kids.
A teacher. That's every class. That's every school, Sister Jackie. Public school, let me say it like that. That the student-teacher ratio is so off balance.
But it hadn't always been like that.
It hadn't always been like that. I'm talking about now. I got some classes with 30 some students come in, and then a teacher is out and they want to split her class because they can't find a sub.
Right.
Now you got 40 students because you took 8 of those and put them in the other 2 classes. Right. So you got 40 students. That's not going to work. And we don't see it. And we would give favor to other parts of other programs in the school. Say we're gonna give this we want 3 PE teachers, we want 3 art teachers, we want 3 just make it seem like we're doing it. But then you probably need to take one of those art teachers away or one of those PE teachers away and put the classroom teacher there, so you can bring this down to a level that these teachers can really understand. But let me say this, Jackie, the teacher ratio is not one of the bigger. I think one of the bigger problems, more so than teacher ratio, is grouping our students. The grouping of students. You got a good classroom discipline, known all over the school. You know what happens? They take every kid with a problem and put them in your class. Yeah, you top heavy with problem kids. You top heavy with problem kids because you are known as a disciplinarian
Mm-hmm.
and you can handle some kids. You know, you've shown yourself that you can handle kids that had problems and keep them on track. So what they do, they take all those kids, not all of them, but they take an abundance of them and put them in your classroom where I may have one in my classroom.
But you know what that does is that still slows that teacher down.
That's what I'm saying.
Tremendously, to a point where I have to get all this behavior under control before I can even start teaching.
Right. So your
That
behavior
could take you a
specialist.
good month to
Right.
get it all under control before you can start teaching. So now you're a whole month behind.
You're a whole month behind. But then it's a daily basis.
Right.
Because some kids
Yeah.
just ain't gonna get in line in that time frame.
Exactly.
You're still dealing with these two over here every day.
Mm-hmm.
You're still dealing with this. Then they tell you, well, we got parapros and educational assistants and all that. You know, you can't put a educational assistant with every child. So here you are, you still struggling. We see this on a daily basis,
Mm-hmm.
you know. And then you give the kid that really needs it. He don't have anybody with him.
Mm-hmm.
So that's my question. You know, how is it? You know, when we got this off balance of teacher ratio, how do we get that back? You know, until we start building more schools, because what we do, we take in too many students. First of all, at the beginning of the year, we won't stop because watch this. They said they are in the zone, which when they're in the zone, they got to be at the school.
Right.
So if they're in your zone, Sis Jackie, and your school is only equipped to hold, say 600 students,
Capacity, right.
and now you got 800 students there.
Mm-hmm.
You know what? You can't send them out of the zone.
Mhm.
You know, you're here. You know,
Mhm.
then by the time they figure it out, the school year is over. Well, we're going to do this next year. Well, you know what happened? Even when you split them, more people move into that zone.
Right.
So you're still back in the same place.
right, and that definitely is not solving the problem.
It's not solving the problem.
They have
Not solving the problem. We
you
need
know.
to stick to a mandate. You can't have more, you know, than a certain amount of
Yeah.
students per teacher.
Right.
You know, and I think the higher the grade, the more students you can have.
Right. But of course, you know, we're behind with a lot of stuff on that in terms of having more schools and all that.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it's well needed. I don't know. It's like the population has increased so much. How can this be so different than 30, 40 years ago? I don't know how it
And
can
we
be
got
so
more
different.
money. We got more resources. We got more everything. And we can't seem to keep up and say we got this under control. And we ain't got enough money for this. Wait a minute. You the lottery now, I just seen over $1 billion. You ain't got enough money.
Right.
But you can build a stadium for $2 billion.
Exactly.
You can give whatever to whatever.
Mhm.
It's like, hey, we ain't got no money.
Mhm.
We just gave $50 million to this community. Just did this. Like, what? Wait a minute.
How?
How?
Exactly. And
My
we
thing is
don't have
this.
any money.
Let me go somewhere, Sister Jack. You talking about why we're behind. Kids not being able to eat at school. Let me say that. I need to put this in here because that's a factor right here.
Mm-hmm.
There comes some behavior issues when you're hungry.
Oh, most certainly.
You know, you come to school, no breakfast. You're late.
Mm-hmm.
You got there at 9. Breakfast is over.
Mm-hmm.
So you know what? Then he didn't eat breakfast before he left.
Mm-hmm.
They finally just got him out the bed and got him there. So he's there. He didn't eat. Then he gets to the cafeteria. He ain't got no money. You know what? Well, the parents ain't really poor. They made $2 more than to get him on free lunch.
Right.
You see what I'm saying?
Or they just didn't fill out the paperwork.
They didn't fill out the paperwork, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So the kid now, he can't eat the way he's supposed to eat.
Mm-hmm.
So he go back home hungry. You know, he just frustrated.
Mm-hmm.
And you see this, you know, and I think this is one of the things that really frustrates me as a teacher
Mm-hmm.
because you want to do the right thing. And kids don't understand what's happening when a kid walks with you and says, Dr. Messenger, I'm hungry.
Mm-hmm.
Let's get you over here in the corner, son. Let me get something to eat. Because I can't put him nowhere else, right?
Mm-hmm.
I want crackers. I want this. I want everybody in the classroom. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So
right.
now we just got a snack break. I got to hand everybody something out because it's unfair. You know, I don't want to push him out. Well, he ain't got no food. He ain't got this. You see what I'm saying?
That takes time away from teaching when you got to take that
again,
break.
But there you go again. We got to take a break, right?
You gotta take a
Now
break.
everybody want water. We got to take a water break. Now I got to use break. Now we got to take a bathroom break.
Right.
So you know what? You lose half the class
Right.
with 3 or 4 students just being in that situation of
Correct.
just being
Correct.
hungry. And I want to put that in there
Mm-hmm.
because students, they come and we getting them like they are, Jackie.
Mhm.
But it's the system that needs to trust us
Right.
as professionals.
Mhm.
That when I come and the masses come and say, this is the problem that we're having,
Mhm.
instead of turning a blind eye and winking at it,
Mhm.
and then saying, we're going to put something else in place because this sounds good.
Mhm.
See, what works in Texas may not work in Tennessee.
Well, interesting that you say that because I wanted to bring up the point of I was going to ask you the question, what do you suggest? And I wrote down some things. I'm like, do you suggest that we take all the politics out of this?
Yeah. I think I mean, we need politics, but I think politics needs to be limited. And this is what I'm saying. If you run for a position, this is one of my things. I think if you run for a position in a political realm that you're going to have any kind of input on what the school system is going to be, you need to you need to put at least a day every month into the school, coming in, seeing what's. And I think.
Well, I have written this. I said, in order to serve on the school board, you must have worked in education for at least 5 years.
Yeah.
I don't think you should be making decisions
That's
for
right.
something that you know
Ask
about.
anybody on the medical board that's never been a doctor. You ain't just
Right.
let me go. Well, we're gonna do this with the heart now. Wait a minute. What y'all talking about doing this heart? You're in the doctor. You don't understand this. This is what they would tell me. You need to be quiet. That's what they would tell me.
Right. Right.
I mean, I can't be a doctor I can't be on the medical board without being a doctor. Can't be on the engineering board without being a doctor. Can't be on the USDA board about food without some kind of food science or something like that. Am I right?
Right. Exactly.
I mean,
but you can be on the school board.
I can be on the school
just
board.
because, and sometimes it's just because you are upset about the way you want your
kid.
things to work for your kid.
That's right.
And that's not how it works for
Joe
the
Plumber
massive or all the kids.
Joe
right.
the plumber and Mitzi the dressmaker decide they wanna be on the school board and they win because of their popularity in the community. Then they just come in. I'm just being honest. They just come in and just wreck the place and they start making all these rules. You can't do this, can't do this, can't do this because, and that's why we have all this imbalance.
Right.
But politics need to spend some time, even political. If you're a senator or state representative or any of that, you got to put at least 30 days a year into some time. Maybe not 30 days, 40 hours a year.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I don't know how you're going to do it, but get this 40 hours in. You get 40 hours of lunchtime in with people.
I don't know if that's going to give you a true picture because there's so much going on in the school these days.
You know what?
You need to spend some time.
It would if you had to spend 40 hours in a school system, you will see it.
Mm-hmm.
You're gonna see it.
You'll see it.
Yeah, I tell you, you can't go 40 hours in school without seeing it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Sooner or later, it's gonna happen.
And can you tell by, and I don't want to get off the subject, but can you tell by the comments some people make that they have no idea what's going on in schools?
Amen.
Like sometimes they say something like, this person ain't been in a school in a long time.
He ain't been to school since he graduated school.
Right.
A lot of them. See, college and public school is two different things. That people miss.
Right.
Two different things.
Two totally different
Two
things.
different things,
because you're functioning as an adult in one, and they're treating you like an adult.
That's
okay?
right.
Just like, I hate to bring this up, but the incident with the professor at Tennessee State University yesterday yelling and screaming at the kid because he had his cell phone out. Well, wrong on all facets, but as I was telling my son, I'm like, hey, if I was a professor, I'd be like, I'm just gonna let you fail this class because you paying for it. I'm not gonna be arguing with you about put your cell phone up because he should have treated him just as if he was an adult. Whereas in high school, we have to say, put your phone up. We're dealing with minors. So you're talking about two different levels of people that you're dealing with.
Right. But and we don't see that a lot of times. Because we think kids at our level should be able to make those same choices. Mm-hmm. He ought to be able to have his phone out in class when we're trying to teach you, son, do you know your ABC? No, sir, but you got your phone out. You need to put that up.
Exactly.
I need to tell you. Or I need to take it. They take them in high school, in my kids' school. I done got called midday. Where your phone at, son? They took it in the office. I got to leave it there for 3 days. You know what? Leave it there because that's the rule. Exactly. And one thing we got to understand as parents, I'm going to say this too, because we're saying things that happen, but as parents, you got to be able to say that's the rule. Mm-hmm. And when it happens to your kid, finally, it don't apply to them. You got to say you knew the rule. Yeah. They knew that you do this, you do this. We had to write. You remember we come home and remember the days of write-offs?
Oh yes. Yeah.
Son, why you writing
I will
off?
not do.
I was chewing gum in this classroom. Did you know not to chew gum? Well, go ahead and waste your time writing off. I mean, that's what we say. Our parents, am I right?
Right.
Now, if you chew it again, I'm gonna get you.
Right.
That's what we say. We have nothing to stand. We don't have a leg to stand on sometimes,
Right.
Sister Jackie.
I agree.
When it comes to things, you know,
Mhm.
we got parents coming in. They want to volunteer for your class, and you ain't invited them into the class.
Mhm.
And they're telling they have a right to be in my. You don't have a right to be in my classroom. You have a right to be in my room critiquing me on my work. You don't have a right to do that. I call that a hostile work environment.
We would love your help, but when you go out and say, well, Dr. Messenger said to your son today, put that pencil down, I'm teaching, and there's no harm intended
right.
there. And you go and tell a parent that, and before you know it, we got an upset
But
parent.
let me invite you in,
just
Jackie.
stay out.
Let me invite you in. Have a talk with me.
Right.
Wait, man, I love to volunteer to come in to help out, and do some things. Like, hey, man, you know what? I really need your help on this.
Right.
When we do this, I'm gonna call you. When we do this, I'm gonna call you. When we do this,
Right.
be on standby. But don't be here every day.
Mm-hmm.
We got. No, I'm serious.
Some parents don't work, and that's what they do.
And they want to
go
be in
school
that kid's room every
single
day.
right? Which is creating a problem in the future in terms for their kids. That's kind of like that helicopter mom, or that they say maybe
and following a teacher throughout the school building, which is not good for your child. We got some kids that's been with the same teacher since they've been in kindergarten.
Yeah.
Because that teacher moved. She's in kindergarten, then she went to first. I want in that classroom again. She ended up going to second the next year. I want to go in that class. Then she looped up with third. I want to be in that class again. Now she's back in fourth grade. I want to be in that class again.
Mm-hmm.
That's not good.
Mm-hmm.
See, diversity is something else to say.
Right. And
something else.
They'll say that in high school, I want to request this teacher. Of course, we don't allow them to request any teachers, but I always try to make, in my speech, I try to tell parents, hey, you're talking about a different kid. You're talking about two different kids, whereas this one may love that teacher, the other one may not. Then you're going to want the kid out of there. And we can't do all that switching.
Most of the time, the one you request go sour anyway. I had my days with that.
Okay, we're going to wrap this up, but I'm going to ask you the question. I want you to answer it and then just kind of wrap it up. Do you think the education system is failing in America? Why or why not?
I do. Because we are allowing children to call, parents and children to call the shots. You can't be educated when you already have your own answer to what you want to be educated to.
That's a good point. That's a very good point. Okay, well, I think that was a good conversation, Pastor. I think that I hope that people learn something from it. I hope we get some comments about it. We welcome any comments that you have. We will see you next time. We'll be back in a week.
And our views does not say that our systems that we work for, that's their opinion. This is only our opinion.
Only
our
opinion.
Make sure we leave you with that, because you say our school said this. No, it ain't our school. No. This is Dr. Messenger's opinion, Jackie Collins' opinion. Have an awesome day.